All right, good morning. So it should be a little bit easier run today than we had on Saturday, about half the distance. And it's a little chilly out. It's not snowing or raining while we're out here. So, yeah, see you in a bit. All right, so unexpectedly, there was a little bit of a mist or a rain this morning for the majority of the run. So kept me cool, damp, and wet. So yeah, that was not great. But 4 miles down, um, taking a breather on the porch before I go in, get showered, and get the reading on. All right, so good morning. Today is a beautiful day. Um, just had a unique experience because it is 73 degrees in my house, and for the first time I am cold at 73 degrees. Being from Iowa, this is not normal at all. So I am no longer allowed to claim Iowa. This is how you know I've been in Virginia for that long. I told my wife that, and she goes, "It's because you're losing weight," and she's probably got a point. So, Science of Success. Science of Success. The chapter today was about going the extra mile. And I really like this chapter because the way he talked about going the extra mile, he pitted it against the rising mentality of a lot of people from my generation, which is how to get something for nothing, or to get the highest reward for the least effort. And this kind of flips that on its end and says, hey, how about you give the most production you can, and eventually your pay will grow to match that. And the concept of going further than you're expected to, providing a higher service than you're expected to, and really pushing the envelope of what you can give in a situation, instead of constantly be looking for how we can receive in a situation. Because if we have a generation, a culture, a community of all people who are looking to receive without providing any kind of good or service, then we're going to end up in a very bad place very quickly. So we need to have the people who are willing to just go out and serve, go out and give, go the extra mile. And what happens is that gets reciprocated. The law of compensation kicks in, and he used the analogy that the man who provides a higher level service than he's paid for eventually gets paid more than his service is worth. And that's because he prioritized going that extra mile. Next up, we have 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This chapter was habit 4, thinking win-win. And he really took some time to break down some stuff for me, because I think most of us have heard the win-win philosophy. And a lot of people even think that they do win-win when they really don't. And the fact that he was able to break it down into the levels of maturity, and that if you're truly thinking win-win, your focus is on the relationship, not necessarily the situation itself. He breaks down that there's win-win, there's win-lose, there's lose-win, there's lose-lose, and then there's win-win or no deal. Which is a next level of maturity, where you can go into a situation and say, hey, look, we're going to work this out, and we're going to come to a win-win situation, or we're just going to agree to disagree, and we're going to do that in a way that allows the relationship to stay in place. And that takes another level of maturity, because not every situation has a win-win in the moment. But if you're seeking win-win or no deal, then that creates a trust in a relationship that provides for a longer-term relationship and benefit down the road for both parties. Whereas the win-lose, lose-win, lose-lose, which isn't good for anybody, really just is a lower level of being able to accomplish something. And you may get what you want in that moment, but you're really setting up disaster in your future when you pursue agreements in that fashion. And I highly recommend taking the time to read the book, because I can't explain every nuance that he goes into in this book, but very, very impactful. And it was the first time I had heard people talk about the reason you go for win-win is about the relationship. It's not necessarily because you want to provide a scenario where everybody wins all the time. No, it's because you want to foster a relationship of continued growth. And they also talked about organizationally, if whatever it is that you encourage, whatever it is that you reward, is what you're going to get more of. And so he shared an example of a company that was trying to get more cooperation across its managers, but then he at the same time had his managers on his whiteboard and was having them race through their levels of success to ultimately become the winner of a trip to Bermuda. And it's very hard to be able to get a culture in a company of cooperation when you have everyone pitted against each other. Because if one of them wins the trip to Bermuda, the others lose, right? So you can't create a win-win environment or a collaborative, cooperative culture when there's only going to be one winner from that group. And so they're rewarding the independence and the lack of cooperation while they're preaching that we want cooperation. So make sure you're rewarding what it is that you're seeking. They also used another example that was very interesting about their salesmen were not doing very well across the entire company, yet the managers were like hitting top brackets for their level of sales. So they were trying to figure out how to get the salesmen to actually do the sales. Well, when they were looking at it, the managers were being compensated based on how many sales they made. So what they did was they took the salesmen and had them do the menial tasks: clean the bathroom, file cabinets, sweep and mop the floor, vacuum, things like that, while they were in a rush, so that the manager could step up and take all of the sales. And that created an environment where the salesmen just didn't care. Because they weren't even given the opportunity to actually excel. And once they realized that, they were able to change the reward, the incentive, so that the reward and incentive were focused on for the managers, that the managers would be compensated based on how well their salesmen did instead of how well they personally did. And that created the environment where now the managers were stepping back, teaching and training their salesmen to become successful, because that in turn increased their level of success. So very, very interesting read. And again, this book is not anything like I was expecting it to be. So highly recommend it to anyone who wants to pick it up. So talk to you soon.